Right. Okay, so yesterday we discussed about multidimensional model, and today we are going to discuss about the hierarchies. So, and again, multidimensional model and hierarchies are very much related, right? So how they are related, and what do you mean by hierarchy, and how exactly they're related with the multidimensional model is something that we're gonna discuss. Right. So for what we discussed is a multidimensional model. So when I say multidimensional model, a multidimensional model is a combination of a fact and a dimension. So if I have to explain you, so assuming that say I have a fact here. So suppose say it's a say revenue or sales or whatever. I'll just give a fact where I have a number. Now where I would like to analyze this number with respect to a calendar. Right. Okay, so when I'm analyzing my revenue with respect to my calendar, okay, so this is obviously a fact where I have my measures which I can analyze, and this is always a dimension which describes my numbers. So in a multidimensional model, there is a fact table, there is a dimension table. So fact table will have the numbers where I can make use of these numbers and create my reports accordingly. At the same time, I have my dimension where which analyzes my fact, which kind of which explains my fact. So if my revenue is 100,000 and with respect to a calendar, then I could understand like what is for year and what is for kind of next levels within the year, right? So now let's assume that my sales is 100,000, my revenue is 100,000. Now when I'm analyzing my 100,000 with the calendar year, so for the entire year, assuming the sales is 100,000. Now, so my idea is, I would like to understand more in detail. It's not like, I understand that the year level and I just leave it just like that. So maybe within the year, there is so many things that you need to understand, like, what exactly the revenue within the quarters and within the weeks or within the months, or in the sense, you need to understand more in detail. So now I understand per year, assuming my sales is 100,000, but most of the times what I need to do is I need to understand a depth of the information, saying, okay, what is my quarterly revenue? I say that in 100,000 is annual revenue, right? So now what is my quarterly revenue? 250,000, obviously, right? So now we divide it by 4, which is 4 quarters. Can we do that way? No, because say maybe my revenue in the first quarter may be high, in the second quarter may be low. So it all depending on what is my revenue within the respective quarters. So some quarter may be doing good, some quarter may not be doing good. So I cannot really split my revenue into 4, because just it's that year will have the 4 quarters. No, I cannot do that way. So I mean, end of the day, what I need to do is I need to understand the revenue with respect to the calendar, and as and when I mean the data always in line with the uh, calendar dimension. So if my quarter is one first quarter is doing good, and I'll have more revenue. If my second quarter is not doing good, it'll have the rest revenue. So end of the day, what are we trying to do is we're trying to analyze my revenue with respect to the calendar. But understanding only just the calendar level or the high level is not sufficient for me to come up with a decision saying, is my revenues are good or not. So I cannot really, I can analyze the information, but again, it is not really going to help me to understand what I need. So I need to go to the next level. Suppose say maybe a week level, just to look at the data and come up with the decisions. Okay, now this revenue is good and this revenue is not good, and this revenue in this week is good, revenue in this week is not good, this month is good, this month is not good. So something like, I can analyze the data. So now, if I understand here in a multi-dimensional model where my dimension is something that describes my fact. So my calendar data describes the fact, saying, what exactly this revenue is all about. But again, when it is describing the fact, describing at the highest level, like at the dimension level, is okay, but it is not really helpful for you to understand the information better. That's the reason what you do. You split the hierarchy into the different levels. Okay, so now what are the different levels mean? Suppose what does it really mean here? Suppose say my hierarchy is basically defining the multiple levels within your dimension. So organizing your dimension as the different levels. So now instead of looking at the data only at the entire calendar level, so what I can do is I can organize my information in a way that, suppose now I can organize the information from the year perspective, so that I can look at the data in the year way. Then I can look at the data from the quarter perspective. I can look at the data from the month perspective. I can look at the data the weeks perspective, or even a day level. So, but again, day level is something that is weird, where we don't really get anything. We, we don't get any aggregated data there. We simply get all the data that we have, so which is not really required. So now I say I have my calendar. Within my calendar, I have year. From year, I have quarter. From quarter, I have month. From month, I have the week. That's how I define my calendar as a different levels. Okay, so there's one level, there's a second level, there's third level, there's a fourth level. So when I am defining my hierarchy, I need to define the hierarchies on the dimensions that explains how my data is navigated. So I can go to the year level, say the year level is 100,000. Now I go to the quarter level. When I go to the next level within my dimension, my 100,000 is automatically split into 4 based on the data that is available for each quarter. Suppose out of 4 quarters, 1 quarter may be doing good, 1 quarter may not be doing good. 1 quarter has done an average. So if I go from year level, which is suppose say 2015, to the quarter level, so within the quarter level I will get the data for the entire year with respect to the 4 quarters. Okay, then same way, it's again months within the quarter. Like within the quarter I can see like a um, kind of 12 months. So each quarter is having 3 months, right? So within the quarter you have 3 months, where if my quarter sales is like 250,000 or 200,000, then if I go to the month level, and it will understand what is the revenue for each month, something like that. No, I can build a logical structure on top of the hierarchy, which I can leverage to create hierarchies like this. Okay, so that way, I can analyze my data in a faster way and efficient way by using the hierarchy. So I don't really need to worry about the data that is not really being used by us, and probably we don't need to think that we have to have these many levels. It depends on how many levels that I want. So I may have 2 levels, I may have 3 levels. How many levels that I would like to set up is entirely depending on the requirement. So now, what is the process to create a hierarchy? Okay, so let's list this thing. Okay, the process to create a hierarchy. First, we need to create a hierarchy. Okay, so I create a hierarchy and a dimension. That's the first thing that I do. Once my hierarchy is created, second step is what? Create levels. So when I say create levels, I say create levels. So now say what is the levels means year level, quarter level, month level, week level. So I need to understand how many levels will be there, how many levels that I would like to analyze my information. Okay, that is the second step where I can create the levels. The third step is add level columns. So what does it mean? So suppose if I define my year, and when I go to the year level, I would like to look at some information to understand what is happening at the year level, what is the data at the year level. Same way here, like quarter, month. I need to have some columns where I can look at the information for this particular level. So in a drill down, when you go from one level to the other level, and I should be able to see some data. So I define a hierarchy, and within the hierarchy I define the different levels, and once my levels are done, I can define the different columns. Okay, and I say okay. So at every level you can define the level keys. Okay. So you define the columns for each level, and at each level you define the keys. So in the sense, what exact is the key column that I will be using to uh, navigate. I don't know, kind of. So the hierarchy creation process is a four-step process all the time. First is you simply build the hierarchy, and on top of the hierarchy you define the levels. What are the different levels that you want? Once your levels are in place, you need to add the columns to the level so that at that particular level I can use a specific information. So once you are at the column levels, and all you have to do is you need to define the keys, where what is the key that you have to use to navigate within the particular level or something. Okay, so now this is how I simply define my level. So if I have to look at the look at the scenario practically, now I need to define a calendar dimension first, which explains how my information is actually available within the calendar. Then I need to split my calendar into, or I need to create my calendar into a dimension hierarchy, where within the dimension hierarchy I need to define my different levels. Like this, I need to define my different levels. Once my levels are ready, I need to define my levels columns for each level. So suppose the year, quarter, month, weeks, I need to add some data where I can look at it when I'm actually analyzing my information. Okay, then for every level you define the keys, so we can call it as level keys, so which will help me to navigate, okay, from what column to what column, and what is the what value to what value, something that I will create. Okay, so to look at it practically, how we create our hierarchy, so let's go and use this dimension. Let's open the repository that we have, which is sales repo 002. See, remember I am developing it in offline mode because end of the day my repository has many changes. So you can also define, or you can also create in the online mode, doesn't matter. But I mean, just I'll develop the repository in the offline mode. Since the changes are many, so I prefer to do it in the offline mode. Then I deploy the same repository. Okay, so now so I would like to create a hierarchy on my products first, because I would like to analyze my revenue information with respect to the product. So now if you look at the product, when I'm defining the hierarchy, first thing that I need to do is I need to understand my dimension. So what exactly this product will have and how exactly you can define the different levels within my hierarchy. So now the first things first, I would like to define the hierarchy on my products. So defining the hierarchy on products is much simpler and easier. It's a one-step process with the help of a wizard. So now I right click on my hierarchy, which is a product. I right click on my dimension, which is a product. And on top of the dimension, I'm going to create a logical dimension, and within the dimension with level-based hierarchy. So this is how you define your hierarchy automatically when I actually define it. So now my hierarchy products dimension is created. Now how does it know, like, what is the different levels that I need to have, what is the different columns that I need to have? It doesn't, but it just creates a hierarchy with the two default levels. One is the total, other is the detail. So here I have the two levels. One is the total level, other is the detail level, where if I look at it, all my required information is kept in my detail level. So the idea here is when you build a hierarchy on your own, and you need to understand that my hierarchy will be created with two default levels. One is the total level and the detail level. Then I can define my own level. So if I look at my definition here, so what is it I'm talking about? Create a dimension hierarchy on dimension. Then you need to create levels. By default, there are two levels created: total level and the detail level, and all my information is captured in the detail level itself. Now all I need to do is I need to move up and create the different levels within my hierarchy. So that is what create levels. So total and the detail. Total is the toppest level, and detail is the lowest level. But in between the top and the low, I should have some data where I can analyze. So that's the reason, I'm gonna create my different levels on in between my total and the detail, and for each level I can define my columns here. So I go back to my repository. So by default, this is the hierarchy that will get created uh, when you simply create a hierarchy on top of your dimension. So on the product, I created my dimension where total and the detail levels are automatically created. So in between the total and the detail, I need to define my multiple levels. So if I look at the information, if I look at your hierarchy totally depending on your information that is available. At the same time, how you exactly want to create my hierarchy. Suppose if I think like only three levels and three columns is more than sufficient, that's fine, because end of the day you need to make use of this particular hierarchy and create the reports. So I have my total level and I have my detail level within the hierarchy. So when I created my hierarchy, automatically with the wizard, where it has created this particular hierarchy. So now I have a total, which is the highest level of my hierarchy, and the detail, which is the lowest level of the hierarchy. So you understand, total is basically, it says entire product range. Total level talks about what? It doesn't talk about a week or quarter or a month. It talks about the entire product range for all the products. What is the thing? That is the total. And detail is like row level, which is a very granular level, where that explains what is the level at each detail level. So in between my total and the detail, I should have some of the levels which I would like to leverage. So that's what I'm talking about, creating a levels within the hierarchy. So right click, what are the different levels that I would like to have? New child level. So for the total, I would like to create another level, which is a child level. My child level could be what? My child level could be a brand. So I'm defining a level which is a brand level, and within the brand I would like to have my LOB, which is a line of business. Child level is LOB. So remember, I need to understand, I need to know these things. When in other words, when you're defining the levels, you need to know that the data within the hierarchy is organized in a way that you do your real-time business. Okay, so in my view, if I were to understand, suppose I select my brand LOB and the type, But to understand what type of data that is available here, based on that I define the relationship. That's very important. So if I see here this view data where I'm looking at my data, I understand, this is my brand. This for this particular brand, there's two different types of line of business, LOB. Okay, so there's a communication, there's an electronic, there's a digital, there's a TV. Okay, so within the brand you have the line of business, and if you look at within the line of business communication, I have the different types where I have the cell phones, I have my smartphones. So which means the information is drilling down from brand to the LOB and LOB to the type. So that's what I represent the same here inside my hierarchy. So my information is brand to LOB, LOB to the next level type. Okay, so now I have my brand level and LOB level, line of business level, at the same time type level, and the next should be detail level. So now, but again, my detail is already defined here. So can I define another detail? Yes, you can if you want, but you have to get rid of this guy. Otherwise, I can simply move this detail level under type. So I have my detail, which is a part of my type. So I have my total level, I have my brand level, I have my type level, LOB level, and I have my type level. So now what I need to do is the levels are added. So if you look at my thing, so I have my hierarchy created, simple, straightforward. I need to define my different levels within my hierarchy, different levels like this within my hierarchy, and in each level you have the columns, which I call it as level columns. So now I need to define my level columns. Now how do I define my level columns? From the detail level, I can understand what is the columns that is required. So I have my brand level, and for my brand I have a column which is called product brand in my detail level. And I can simply select my brand and I drag it to my brand level. So this is my level column. So at each and every level I need to define the level at the same time for the particular or for the corresponding level what kind of data that we have. So I have my brand level. Within the brand level, what is that I'm doing? I'm analyzing my brand information and LOB, and I'm gonna add my line of business. And for the type, I'm gonna add my type. And the bottom level is the kind of product key level or date level or whatever that you have. So this is the key level is which is the bottom level which I am going to utilize. Right. So now by looking at it here, now this is my hierarchy where I drill down from my brand and to the LOB to the type and to the detail level. Okay. Now, so I have defined a hierarchy. Within the hierarchy, I defined the different levels, and for each level, I have added the columns. And the last and the final one, which I would need to have, is the keys at the levels. So, what exactly is the key? So, now I have my brand. If I double click on my brand, then if I go to the keys and I define my key here, or I have only one column, so obviously this is the column that I'm going to use for key. So I can right click on my project brand. I say new logical level key, which is I'm going to create a new key. So what is my key here? My product brand. So I only have one column at the level brand, but that is also a unique one. So here also for the LOB line of business, I have only one information, and again that is the information which I need. So I can right click on my line of business and say new logical level key. Okay, now then product type also I need to define my key, right click new logical level key, and I can specify my product type. Okay, so now this is my hierarchy where I have my measures defined, which is nothing but my dimension which I would like to analyze my data, and we need to understand this data with respect to a hierarchy. I can use this product here instead of creating the hierarchy, but it does not organize my data in a hierarchical format where I can make use of this information and create the report. So now, since my hierarchy is done, and I can move my hierarchy to any of my dimensions, I will select my product dimension, and I say drag and drop my hierarchy onto the presentation layer, so which could be a subject area. So this is my dimension. I'm dragging and dropping in my dimension onto my dimension products. So my hierarchy is dragged and dropped onto my dimension. So now if you see here, under the product, these are the columns that I'm going to utilize. And again, obviously, there is a hierarchy which I'm adding, which is an empty, though it's a dummy hierarchy. So uh, you need to look at it. So it doesn't really have any data available here. But again, it only show you the structure that is available. So I have a dimension. On top of the dimension, I create a hierarchy, and that hierarchy is also a part of your logical table. So now this means this hierarchy that you have defined is a specific to your product. Okay, so where when you are analyzing this information, where you drill down the information with respect to the hierarchy. So I simply say save. Do you wish to check the global consistency? So what is that you're trying to do? You're trying to understand if the repository is consistent or good or not. So I say yes. Okay, so now it has given a couple of warnings. There is no errors. So warnings are more or less you can ignore the warnings. Okay, so but again, when you are looking at the warnings, that is always important, to look at what type of warning it is defining, so that you're not doing a major mistakes. So one of the warning is customer, where the logical dimension table customer has a source LTS customer that does not join to any fact source. Okay, this is fine. So these kind of errors are fine, which we are going to fix this. So because when you're defining the hierarchy for one particular dimension, and it expects you to define the hierarchy for other dimension also. So what it says is um, where my product is linked. So now my product is linked to my revenue, right? But again, my customer offices and time is not at linked to my revenue. That's what it says. So you still need to create the hierarchy for the rest of the three dimensions. Is something that is being mentioned within my warnings. So anyway, we know that we are going to define the hierarchies for those particular dimensions as well. Then when we create the hierarchy for those dimensions, and these uh, warnings will be removed. Okay. So now, as long as you have the warnings, so it's okay. It will allow you to define, and it will allow you to, it says a change. So if there is a error, then you cannot really simply push that, or you cannot simply redeploy that one. But again, if it is a normal, then you have the possibility where you can ignore these errors, ignore these warnings, and you can start defining the things. So now, since it is it's just a warning, and I'm going to ignore those warnings for now and say close. So my hierarchy is defined with different levels, where I can utilize my information by navigating from these levels. Now my repository is saved. So all I need to do is I need to simply deploy this repository, because this is entirely a new repository that I have created, where I am actually uh, developing the hierarchies on top of it. So unless you deploy it, my server doesn't know what is there in this particular repository. So that way, now I go to my enterprise manager. Within my enterprise manager, what is that I need to do? I need to deploy my repository that I created with the hierarchy. So when I deploy it, what happens? My repository get deployed onto my base server, so that my base server will improve the what is the capability. So this is my WebLogic user. I simply say login and simply deploy the repository. Then create the report based on this particular repository, and see that how we are actually navigating from one level to the other level, and how my data is changing with respect to each level for particular revenue. Okay, so let's go to my enterprise manager, core application. So let's deploy the repository again. So this is my deployment, and I say lock and edit configuration, which I am locking the screen for deployment of the repository. Currently, what is the repository that is deployed? Sales repo underscore 001 underscore BI 0057. So when I deploy it, and it's gonna create a repository with the counter BI 0058. So that indicates, the repository that you deployed is the latest repository. Okay. So now, what is that? I need to browse my repository. So what is my repo that I'm going to deploy? Sales repo underscore 002. This is the repository that I have developed now with the capability of hierarchy. So sales repo underscore 002, which we build the repository in a offline mode. So that is the reason I'm deploying. Otherwise, I don't even need to deploy. If it is in online mode, I can simply open it. This is my sales repo 002, which I need to provide my password, because unless you provide the password here, my server cannot use this repository. And again, the password that you are giving is case sensitive. At the same time, it doesn't validate the password here. So it just you're giving it, but the password will get validated when my server is actually reading the information. So say apply. So my changes are applied in the sense, if you see here, sales repo 002, this is the repository, and this is the counter. So what happens is, for every repository that you deploy, what it will do is it will identify the existing counter. Say for example, that is a 57 today. So when you deploy it, and the counter is automatically getting incremented to 58. In the sense, it will create a copy of the same repository, and it will add the hierarchy. It will add the different things to this hierarchy. So this is I have applied my changes. All I need to do is what? I need to simply activate my changes, commit my changes. Okay, so when I activate my changes will be committed. In the sense, the configuration file will be updated with the same repository. The same time, uh, a repository copy, which is a sales repo 002 underscore BA 0058 is created. So when I say activate the changes, it essentially does two things. One, it creates a configuration file. Second thing is it creates certain files based on the configuration that is available. So in the sense, so a new repository is created, which is a copy of the existing repository, and it is actually configured on the server, so that when I activate my changes, my configuration file is updated, my repository is copied. So what I need to do is I need to restart my server. When I restart my server, what happens? My server will use the updated configuration file. Then it will read the new repository that is available in the configuration file. Then it will load this hierarchy. Simple. Right, so my activate changes is done. So since my changes are activated, so what I need to do is I need to restart my server. So how do I restart my server? So I would like to restart my server from the command line. So I go to my Oracle BI. Within my Oracle BI, I'm talking about the instances. Within the instances, I have my instance, which is instance to here, and within my instance, I have something called bin. You see, there is something called OPMNCTL, which is Oracle Process Manager Controller. So I can go to this location. I can also kind of restart from the GUI, so that's not a problem, but I am just trying to show you the different options. So I open my command prompt from here. I can go to my location, which is my bin location. Now from here, I can simply type my OPMNCTL. So OPMNCTL, which is Oracle Process Manager Controller. Now I can give a certain parameters to this OPMN CTL to understand the result. So if I would like to say OPMN status, which is going to explain the status of my server. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 processors running on the server. So now my idea is what? My idea is to restart my server. So I can say this time OPMNCTL space stop all, which will stop all my 7 services that is running under my OPMNCTL. Okay, now I have stopped all my processes that is available on the server. If I go there, none of them will be running. Okay, but again, how can I stop my process? Here, my this is my WebLogic. My WebLogic will be still be running, but within the WebLogic there is a particular deployment, particular repository which is different. Suppose my server is stopped. All my kind of processes are stopped now. So when my processor stopped, so it is the processes of my instance, not the WebLogic. So as I told you, like there is 2 servers that is running inside your OBIEE. One is your WebLogic server, and within the WebLogic server there is a smaller instance of your OBIEE 10G. So you're not stopping your WebLogic, and where you're stopping only your instance. Now you're gonna start your instance. Now how do I start my instance now? OPMNCTL Oracle Process Manager Controller. Then I can say start all. All my processes are started now. See, sometimes when you're starting, if it gives any error, which means what? There is an issue with your repository or something. If your server is not starting, and obviously your server is not able to open and read the repository and do something, which means you have to fix that issue before you actually start using this repository for the report creation. It's taking more time, I don't know. Okay, so it has started. In case if there is any error, it will give you the error saying, okay, it's failed to start. Right, so now all my services are kind of, suppose if I do again status now, then I'll see all my services are alive, all my services are started. So where you can do it from the command line, which is comparatively faster than restarting from my browser. So how do I restart my? I can click on this restart to apply changes from here. If I want to do it from my browser, just click on this link. It will take you to the overview tab, and within the overview tab you have something option to restart from the browser itself. So when you click on that, the application, which is this application, will automatically restart. So let's see, if I click on restart, my enterprise manager application will take the initiative and restart the server without going to the physical server. So that is the beauty of it. So now since we deployed this repository, and I would like to use this repository to create the reports by navigating or by drilling down from one level to the other level. So how do I define those reports? I can go to my analytics or analysis. This is my analytics, which is nothing but my reporting environment. Okay, so I go to my WebLogic user and I sign in. Right, let's create a simple report, which is my analysis, which I would like to create based on my assuming the north. Where is my hierarchy actually defined? I need to sometimes take a look at it. So this is in the north, which is products I have added. That's good. So I'm using my north, and if you look at here, within my north, I have something called no product dimension, which automatically got added. So I can simply choose my product dimension, and I also need to check now what revenue that I would like to analyze with respect to. So I would like to analyze my revenue with respect to my product dimension. Right, that is how I simply create a report where I can analyze my data with respect to the product. Okay, now I simply say results. So if you look at here, my product total revenue is what? This is my so and so revenue. So it's kind of my product total level, which is aggregated of all the sales with respect to my particular kind of a dimension, which is my product dimension. So, say total. What is my total sale? My total sales is kind of say 50,000. So then again, my individual brand sales. This is the brand within your total. So if the total is 500,000, assuming now, then I can see 200,000 is this, and 1.7 is this, and 100,000 is this. So if I combine, or if I take calculator and I kind of combine all these three, it becomes to 5 only, which means my 500,000 is split into different products. Now I can go to the product level. So within the product, what exactly is something that we have. So I have my product level. Within my product brand level, this is the brand, the total. Within the total, what do you have? You have the brand. So hopefully the idea is, you understand by looking at the data what it is, right? So I go to my brand level. Within the brand level, then I can go to my different uh, different level, which is total, brand, and there is a line of business, I believe. So within the line of business, then I can see different. Okay, so now if I look at here, so I actually analyze my data. So if I look at my repository, I have my different levels: brand level, line of business level, and type level. Brand total level, brand level, line of business level, and the type level. So I have the different levels where I can look at the data in an organized way, in a systematic way. So which from this, what I can do, I can analyze my information. So what is the total sales with respect to a product? At the same time, what are the total sales at the different levels, and within the levels, what is the sales for brand level, and line of business level, and type level. So I can look at my information from different levels. This is the beauty of your hierarchies. Without the hierarchies, you will not be able to create your drill downs and navigation and all this stuff. So that is the reason the core idea of the OBIEE is building a multi-dimensional model within your BMM layer, where make use of that particular multi-dimensional model for creation of the report and analysis of the data by drilling down from one level to the other level. Simple, straightforward, where I have my hierarchy available, and I have used my hierarchy, and I'm drilling down the information for that particular hierarchy. Okay. Now, any changes to the hierarchy, suppose if I would like to do any changes, then I can do hierarchy. But again, if I do the changes now on this, it's not kind of going to get affected unless I redeploy the hierarchy. But that's not something that I want to do it, right? Unless I redeploy the repository, I'm not going to do that way. What I would like to do, I would like to open this repository in online mode and do my quick changes if at all there is any. So I close the repository which I opened it in my offline mode, so I'm going to open my repository in my online mode. So within the online mode, it doesn't ask you for the repository, but because you're not actually opening any physical repository on your system, you're opening the repository that is there on the server. So the password of the server, which is for the WebLogic, is a welcome one, and the first one is the repository password, the second one is the password of the WebLogic. So in my case, both are the same. I simply give my password. I say open. Now I'm opening a live repository which is running on the server. So any changes that I do now on this is not going to get it does not require any restart. It's kind of a one-step process. Anything that you define or any changes that you define will automatically get kind of reflected on the server, because we are directly modifying our repository on the server, not the offline copy. So that's how my hierarchies work. So now if I want to do any changes, I can simply do the changes at any level. So hierarchy define, total level and the detail level. These are the two different levels that will automatically get created when you define the hierarchy. But in between, what is that I need to do? I need to define the other levels that is a part of your hierarchy, and what level, what columns that you have to use, and what column information that you have to keep for each level, and what is the what do you say attribute information. Say for the brand, I have my product brand. For the LOB, I have my line of business. So I have to have the relevant information to be there, which is a descriptive. Okay, so with this, what is that I'm doing? I am analyzing my the revenue information, whether it could be a revenue or the units or some other calculation. So where I simply drill down and understand, how my data is looking at. So that's the beauty of your hierarchy. So similarly, like we created the hierarchy for my products, I can also build the hierarchy for rest of the dimensions. So it could be any dimension. So if I would like to build something with time, so then I can define my, say, right click, logical dimension with level based hierarchy. Remember, I'm doing it in online mode, so now I don't need to redeploy the repository even if at all there is any changes. I'm going to create a dimension with the level based hierarchy, where I have created a time dimension. Within the time dimension, I have my total level and the detail level. So if I look at my dimension, where I have my half year level and quarter level, month level, week level, and year level. So now what I need to do is I need to define my total level. Within my total level, I need to define the year, within the year half year, within half year month, within the month quarter, and within the quarter week. That is how my hierarchies are built. So right click on my total level, new, and I'm going to create my child level, which is my year, obviously. So I say year. Okay, so within my total I have the year. Within the year I have the child level, which is my half. Within half I have another child level, which is quarter. Within quarter I have my another child level, which is if you look at here, I have my year, half, quarter. I say I have something called a month. Then within the month, what do I have? I have my week. Right, so I build my hierarchy for the. So now, when I'm building the hierarchy, I have not defined the detail level, because I would like to add my detail level under the week. I can say check in. So it doesn't get synced up now. For once you save it, then it will automatically get synced up when you drag and drop the level to another level. So that way, it is perfectly managed. Let's just save. So I have my year level, half year level, quarter level, month level, week level, and the very minute level, which is the date level. Okay, so now for year, I need to add my data, which is per name year, which is, let's say I'm defining a normal hierarchy where I'm not defining my financial year hierarchy. So simply use this 5 columns, which is required for the normal repository creation. So what is that I need to do? I need to add my column, which is my year column, to the year level. I need to define my half year column to the half year level. I would like to define my quarter level to the quarter. I would like to define my month. Sorry, it's not a financial year, so I messed it up. So I need to say. Okay, so this is your per name year, right? So I have my per name year, I have my per name half, which I'll be moving to my half year level. I say per name quarter and per name month. So per name week. Okay, that's it. But if you observe here, there is something around calendar date that is already there at the bottom level. So now if I say check in, I'm not doing the consistency because I know that it will still give you errors because I have not completed the development of the repository. But this will kind of refresh your screen where you can see this information systematically. Now at every level, I need to define a key. So this is my key. Say I define my year as the key here, and define my half year as the key here, and I define my this as a key here, and I already defined. I have defined the key here, key here, key here, and key here again. Okay, so now at this level the key is already there. So I'm going to navigate to the different levels with respect to my revenue. That is what my hierarchy for the calendar or time that defines. So now if I had to use the same, then I have to simply this doesn't have time, but again south may have time, so I can move my time hierarchy to my time. So now when you go to your subject area, which is sales south, then only you'll be able to see your hierarchy. Otherwise, it does you don't see that unless you use different stuff. So I say check in. So my repository is good now, so it's still giving 2 warnings. So remember last time, when we deployed the first repository product, it was showing 3 warnings, but now I have moved one of my repository here, then it is showing only 2. So now I have my two dimensions with the hierarchies, and I still need to create 2 more. What is the 2 more? Then I say customers and the officers. So that is the reason it's showing as a warning. These tables does not have a hierarchy defined. So that's fine. We can ignore these warnings. And my hierarchy is ready, and I can say time dimension. So my time dimension is here. So now I can say save. Now I can go back to my stuff here. So what I can do is I can say criteria. Within my criteria, okay, so I deployed it right, and I open in online mode. So I need to reload my metadata, which is nothing. No, I need to reload my server. So probably the time hierarchy is not available in the north. So I can go and I can say new analysis. Which is, I think it's a south. Where do I have my time dimension? It's in south, right? So if you look at here time, then I see I have a hierarchy. So I can have my time dimension and I can have my revenue. Okay, I can say revenue where again I can say for the total this is the value, and for 2008, 2000 and 2000 for each year this is the value. For the 2010 and within the 2010, which is this is a half year. So this 2010 is split into two halves. Okay, the one and the second. So again within one half I have my quarters. Within each quarter I can have my kind of year, quarter and month. This is the month level, which is I have 3 months. Month 1 2, month 2, month 3. 1 2 3. Now within the month I should have what? Weeks. And within the weeks I talk about days. So that's how I simply drill down my data. So if you look at here, this is how I'm drilling down, where I'm navigating and I'm looking at my level of information that is required within my dimension with the help of hierarchies which we create on top of the dimension. So a dimension without a hierarchy is kind of more or less useless, where you cannot really use it for the purpose of analysis, extensive analysis. Okay, so these are we build the hierarchies for products as well as the time. So similarly, we can also build the hierarchies for the other dimensions like offices and the customer. So we'll build it the next class. And meanwhile, I would like you guys to build at least one simple hierarchy and understand how the hierarchy creation process is defined, and understand how to create a hierarchy on your own, so that you'll get the way building these hierarchies, and you understand. I mean, by if I keep explaining, you find it very easy, but when you do it on yourself, you start realizing what you understand, what you don't understand, and if there is a step that you really need to recollect, then you can go back and recollect and fix that in your mind, so that when tomorrow you're explaining something or when you're creating something, you can quickly create the hierarchies on your own. Okay, right. Any questions before we wrap it up? Anything that you don't understand here?